You are listening to the Green Rapids Podcast.
Woo!
That was so good.
That was so good. Yeah, welcome back. We're here with a special guest today. Marco, my partner / BF, my honey. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
My friend.
Yeah, Nancy's friend. We all just
Yes,
went on a little date, so we're
It was great.
pumped to be here. But yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you, guys. My name is Marco Allegretti. I work in community, specifically community development in Detroit. We do a whole host of things, including a farmer's market that I'll talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of experience with AmeriCorps in a few different states. Have taken me on quite a journey. And I'm a bit of a transit advocate as well.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little. We'll talk about that, I'm sure.
So yeah, just kind of bike us through. Where
Sure.
Did it start?
Yeah, well, first, AmeriCorps is something that many people probably never heard about or not familiar with, right? AmeriCorps, kind of think of it like the Peace Corps, but maybe the domestic version of the Peace Corps, right? Going back to JFK, 1963, it was his idea to come up with some sort of federal volunteer program. And that was actually called VISTA at the time, which is still a thing, which is a part of AmeriCorps. VISTA's Volunteers in Service to America.
Mm-hmm.
I was, in my later years of college, I started to think about hospitality in service and what that means. I had experience working for my father's company and doing service work, right? And we'd go to homes, we'd deal with customers, and I remember thinking about that as service. And then I started to get a little bit more engaged politically. So I started thinking about certain issues in a different way, and I started thinking about service. I was like, what does that mean to serve? And I was like, okay, well, that's pretty broad. My minor in college was hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
And I was like, okay, well, I started looking at different options, and I came across AmeriCorps. And I was like, I'm not really sure what direction I wanted to go. And I thought after college...
What was your major in college?
It was business management and then hospitality minor. And those were fairly broad, so I was just kind of wondering where I could go with that. And I started to I was inspired to maybe go out, travel the world. I thought about the world. I thought about Peace Corps. That's where AmeriCorps took me. I was like, you know what, that sounds a little bit more attainable. So anyways, I did AmeriCorps for about 4 or 5 years. My first service term is what they call it. It took me to Colorado. And I went to South Central Colorado to a place called San Luis Valley. Alamosa, Colorado is the town in the San Luis Valley.
Everything in Colorado sounds way cooler than anything we have going on here. Okay, we do have some cool indigenous names, but otherwise it's just
Kalamazoo. When I first I was like, I love saying that.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so
sorry.
No, you're fine. Colorado is great. More people are familiar, or most people are familiar with Denver and stuff like that, which is still a cool city. I was in a very rural, mountainous area in the southern part of it, very close to New Mexico. And that was a interesting experience with rural poverty, right? I was kind of familiar with my time in Chicago and stuff like that. As that was an opportunity to go, and I served at a food bank in a shelter where we did 3 meals a day, and we had all kinds of services. So I want to give a shout out to La Puente Home. They still obviously are in operation. They still take AmeriCorps members. They have great staff.
That's Chicago?
No, La Puente Home is...
that's the one in Colorado.
Yeah,
okay.
Alamosa, Colorado. They're a great org. They do amazing work.
They also have a thrift shop.
Yep.
They have
love a thrift.
Place where you can go leave food and purchase it if you can take it, but it's a soup or not a soup kitchen. It's a...
They do
a
have
food pantry, hybrid kind of situation.
So they do a variety. So they do have a food bank. They have a soup kitchen. They have a coffee shop. Yay. They have a free clothing shop and also a thrift store.
Right.
They do they have a kids program. So anyways, you can check them out, lapuentehome.org. They do great stuff. And I worked with them through AmeriCorps. And as that was something that was kind of a bit of a leap at the time for me to do. And like I said, I wasn't entirely sure what direction I wanted to go after college. that really just kind of the work that I did and the kind of poverty that I saw and the homelessness and stuff, it really kind of, I guess radicalized me in a way. I saw some things that I found very, kind of disappointing. And I was young at that time, and I wasn't fully familiar with the many things we got going on in this country. So I was like, wow. And I took a little bit of break from AmeriCorps, but then I hopped back into it.
Well, of course. Now you've put the goggles on.
Well, you gave us the spoiler in the beginning that you were there for like 4 or 5 years.
I did spoil that a little bit.
I'm not surprised.
But yeah, so I did another AmeriCorps journey, and that was to Vermont. I worked for an organization there called Spectrum Youth and Family Services. So they're out of Burlington, Vermont, which is the biggest city in Vermont. Not that big. That is about maybe 50,000 people.
Oh, fun fact about Marco. He knows the populations. He be looking this stuff up.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting. I love that you just want to know so much about the place that you're hearing about or visiting or something like that.
Or even just buildings across the street from where we're eating, as I learned today.
Well, we found out what year it was built. Also, the building that we're in right now, we now know it was built in 1907.
Yes, it was over 100 years old. It's a great old building. You can tell they
cool
made
building.
it right. They really
they don't make them like that anymore.
It's tough to find. You don't see them like this anymore.
Anyway, so you're in Vermont.
So I'm in
Population.
Vermont. I'm in just outside of Burlington, St. Albans at the drop-in center, which was primarily for youth, right, between 12 to like 21 or 2. We would make some, exceptions for some folks.
Yeah,
but we had, clothing showers. We did 3 meals a day. We had internet, we had printing. We had tutoring, we had mentoring. It was a whole host of services. So I was their food coordinator there, and seeing the youth poverty was a difficult thing and also very eye-opening. And then how my time, whether it was in Chicago or whether it was in Colorado or whether it was up in Vermont, seeing the poverty and the different issues, I was like, well, no matter where you are, people need the same thing.
Of course.
Right? People want access to affordable housing. They want good food. They want good schools for their children. So it doesn't really matter where you are, right? It doesn't matter really what background you're even from. That you need access to those things, and when communities don't have access to those, they can struggle in a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
you need whole programs to go in and help attempt to eradicate the issue, and really they're not able to eradicate the issue. They're able to
just address the symptoms.
It's true, and that's kind of AmeriCorps in a way as well. A lot of great organizations are a part of AmeriCorps. However, it doesn't solve the issues. It doesn't solve poverty. It doesn't solve hunger or food insecurity or housing insecurity. It does, give good services here and there and apply, what you could say Band-Aids to much larger solutions or problems, that is. I wasn't done, though. So after Vermont, I wasn't done with my AmeriCorps time. After that, I moved back to Michigan, and I did something called Reading Corps, which is tutoring for students at a school. I was at a school in Detroit.
That sounds cozy.
Reading Corps is cool. Hope Academy in Detroit, that was also just realizing literacy and how important that is to, the success of a student or just a person in general. If they have the ability to read and write well, then their future can look a lot better. And
imagine that. You have access to food. You have access to the capability of reading what's on that label. There's so many things that go into caring for a society. And it's wild to me that it sometimes comes to like a revelation for some people. I'm not trying to dog on people, but I'm just kind of like, is this day one shit for people, or do we not understand the basic needs and necessities that humans have?
Especially if you look at the way other countries kind of operate and care for their most vulnerable people, we're pretty behind on that scale.
A little bit.
Yeah, the school, I mean, it's difficult to see, most of the kids are far behind, right? And that's to say, it's not just Detroit. It's many places across the country, especially many cities.
And rural areas.
And rural areas, too. It's funny, those are things that are pretty much across the board. They can look a little different, but it is a thing that doesn't discriminate, Detroit kind of, it kind of caught me a little bit. It kind of grabbed a part of me, and, I was like, I want to stay here, and I want to, do what I can, my little bit, to see if the city can, kind of pick itself up a little bit. And it's made a lot of improvements. But, however, some parts of Detroit are, pretty devastating, at least from my perspective.
I call it the developing nation of Detroit. Sorry, but it's kind of true. I mean, it is developing. We are, people are moving, but spending a good amount of time in Detroit now, it's just different. It's so different than anywhere else I've been.
Yeah, and for the most part, especially with like big entities, like whether that's like municipal powers or like just any kind of governmental body, it's like the bigger it is, the slower those wheels turn. So
totally. Oh my God. Okay, can we quick dog on that sign?
Yeah.
Have
you seen it?
No.
Oh my God. I'm gonna have to pull up a picture. Detroit paid almost $500,000 for a Detroit sign, almost like it's supposed to be like the Hollywood sign of Detroit.
They didn't.
Well, no, they didn't at all. They put people keep saying I've seen graduation signs bigger than this. It's just not impressive at all. And I don't know, just
how
the
big
stuff
is
they're
it?
saying about. Nancy, I have to show you photos of
It just didn't.
It's not
quite
wowing anyone.
Meet expectations, and
That's
for an area that
unfortunate.
is asking for a lot of things, whether that is affordable housing, better schools for their kids, transit. Public transit is always at the top of the list when talking about Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of thought that spending near $500,000 on this Detroit sign that is extremely underwhelming. It just doesn't seem like a good allocation of funds.
Well, and this is what
No,
we're
I
talking.
agree.
And what I kind of just said is if you're gonna make the sign, right? You can't just if people see it and they're not inspired or enthusiastic
or
about
if you're
it,
gonna make
what
it
was
that
the
little,
point?
don't hype it up.
Don't hype it up. What was the point?
So there's a Detroit rapper, G-Mac Cash, who is funny. He pops up on the
Kind of
scene.
went on.
He's a Detroit guy who made a hilarious rap about the sign being underwhelming, like I said.
That's funny. What's the name of the song?
I think it's just called Detroit Sign or something. It is too funny. But
Sorry, I derailed. But no, I think it just speaks so much to when I go to Detroit, what I see is the attempt to do something and the lack of follow through, and more than anything, investment in things that don't actually matter to the human condition that we're facing right now, which seems to be it's incredibly unaffordable to be a person.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have access to the health standard that we should be abiding by: mental health, physical health, education. So the Detroit is the perfect example of all of the systemic issues that we're facing, including things like air quality,
right,
water pollution. The list just kind of unfolds there. So I mean, Detroit's a beautiful city, right? The people there are not making the systemic.
The people in charge.
Yes, totally. So anyway, sorry, Detroit sign.
Yeah, no, they've had a focus on, I think, what is something called 7.7 or 7.3. It's something like that, where it is primarily focusing on around 7 square miles of the downtown and just the outer surrounding areas of downtown, where primarily most of the development has occurred. And that leaves the rest of, I believe, around 130 square miles of Detroit kind of oftentimes left to fend for themselves, and unfortunately it shows. If you go off, if you spend some time and you go outside of some of those main centers, around the arenas and downtown and midtown, it can be a little disappointing to see. Anyways,
of course.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, but this kind of all wraps around because I think it's super cool what you do now. Something that AmeriCorps also led you to, correct?
Yes,
so the program after the Reading Corps program you did.
Yes. So that brought me to Joy Southfield Community Development, where I still work to this day. I did a...
Tell us about Joy Southfield.
Yeah,
What is
yeah.
it? I've never heard of it.
Yeah. So community development, we do a host of different things. I came on helping out with the farmers market, and I did something.
We love a farmers market.
Yeah, it's a great farmers market.
We love it.
You know, lots of local Detroit vendors, black-owned vendors, and we partner with Eastern Market. So basically, you know, we like to say like most things popping in Detroit like go through Eastern Market or like evolve around it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Eastern Market has a lot of great
Are
stuff
they like the
going on.
hippest people ever?
Well, I mean, you know, they are pretty hip, I will say. You know, you go to Eastern Market, it's just east of downtown. You know, they do a whole host of different things. They got their hands in a lot of different stuff. But anyways, you know, you could go to DetroitMarkets.org, and there is about 20-some markets that are spread throughout Detroit. And we're one of those markets. We're sowing seeds, growing futures. And they come to a stand at our market every week, Tuesdays, coming up in May through October.
Shout out.
Yep.
Come through if you're
Save
in
the
Detroit.
date.
Coming soon. And anyways, they have all local produce. They try to get from all Detroit produce. And I just want to say, too, that, you know, with all the open land in Detroit, you know, a lot of people have tried to, successfully, I will say, not always, but to make urban farms, right, in a variety of different ways.
I love an urban farm.
You know, in like...
We talk about it all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
We're like, we got to get one of these lots because Detroit wants people to do this, right? Like they will sell you a chunk of lots or one lot for what? Under $10,000 as long as you promise to develop it for the community in one way or another.
Yeah.
Like that might mean you have to put like a multi-use building up. That might mean that you have to put a community garden or do something for it. But
Yeah.
either way, like this is pretty easy for people to do, which is why it kind of pops up everywhere, right?
Yeah, no,
I mean, not
it's-
easy in the sense like there's probably like a whole list of things you have
I'm
to
sure,
do.
like,
but
yeah, with everything, there's probably like all kinds of like hoops to jump through, but it's nice that is available because it is like a lower cost and
Yes.
it is something that benefits the community. So any aspiring urban ag folks, hit up Detroit.
well, there's just an abundance of land, and
There's-
they need people to do something constructive with it.
It's true. So check out the Detroit Land Bank for some cheap options, and
Or if you're bored, it's pretty interesting,
There's- yeah.
actually.
check it out. You know, and they're waiting. A lot of the land and also just buildings are waiting for someone with a little bit of time, a little bit of money. You know, need some TLC. But talking about the environment a little bit, Detroit's history of different factories and different pollution and stuff like that. Sometimes the ground has a variety of different things that you don't want in the ground. if
Like
you're growing.
what?
Just, you know,
Like contaminated.
PFAS,
Yeah, exactly.
or you know,
Yes.
maybe old lead left over.
Yes,
Just like the
exactly.
decaying of a building can
different
be
kinds like
very
arsenic and
dangerous.
random
Yes,
stuff.
right.
So, you know, that sometimes requires a little bit of work, right? So sometimes garden beds are best or whatever, you know, but
Yeah, like off ground stuff.
you can purchase them for sometimes as low as $500 from the land bank in order to, because they are, you know, they have at least some efforts to revitalize some of that land. Anyways, that is good.
Well, I
Free
just
plug.
and I want to kind of debunk some of the Detroit theories. You know, just because it doesn't have maybe everything going on, it doesn't mean that like Detroit isn't going to be safe. Like there are certain areas of every single city that you might not want to be in, but like I think that Detroit has a lot of potential no matter who you are. And I think like the more we invest in places, like we always go back to this, right? Like, you know, what comes first? The investment in transit so that people want to ride it, or people riding it so they invest in it? Like what comes first? I mean, we talked about this even further, and I don't mean to like push this further right now, but like bike lanes, right? Do we just wait for them to put these things in, or do we just like unapologetically share the roads until they make it a necessity for us?
Yeah, and even back to like the first part of what you just said, like about certain areas being like underinvested in and then being seen as like the bad areas. Like a part of that is also just like our like cultural, like as far as like American culture of just looking at like kind of equating like poor with evil sometimes. I think that's, you know, just a thought pattern to break. Just want to call it out.
No, it's true. You know, I mean, sometimes people are hesitant to go to certain parts of Detroit or even my market, right? Some people will be hesitant. But not only do I take the bus out there all the time and cycle and stuff like that, you know, poor folks aren't just going to, you know, like they don't want to just, you know, harass you or attack you. I think people kind of have the stigma in their mind, like you said, Nancy, a little bit, where, yeah, they're just afraid, and I think a lot of times it is kind of just for no reason.
Right.
You know, say, and, I think it's important to get out and be a part of the community, say hello to folks. I think it can matter a whole lot. So
Yeah.
We've met some really cool people on the bus, or every time we're riding bikes, we always get like the interaction that like waving at someone who's walking their dog or with their kids or on their porch. It's just building community in that way too. And I think farmers markets are exactly that, right?
Yeah.
Like you see so many different people. We're all there for the same reason, just being a human.
It's true. Yeah, it's gonna be popping. We're gonna have music. We have a community chef, who's from the area, a woman of color, who is going to be taking the ingredients that we get from Eastern Market and other, local farms, and she's going to be making samples and recipes and just food for people to have. We have a whole grill and everything that we'll have set up, so that that's gonna be great. We're also gonna have free food boxes.
Free food.
We love free food.
Yeah, free
Talk
food
about
boxes.
it. I really want people to hear about these.
So like Eastern Market again, they're great. On our market days, they will be coming by with 50 or more. We can test how many. We're gonna kind of gauge that a little bit because we can get more. They have a large capacity. But all of that stuff is going to be Michigan and specifically trying to source from Detroit as well. And since in the earlier part of the season, that's going to be a lot of greens and stuff like that, right? And then we'll maybe get some apples and cherries and then lots of eggs.
You're right. So
So lots of produce, eggs. It's going to be great. And I hope
all for free.
And it's free. Just come on by. So we're going to be doing a whole host of other things like Fresh Prescription, right? So Fresh Prescription is a program where you can get fresh produce from your local farmer's market. You can get it for free, up to $15, if you participate in this program once a week, where you just basically talk about food and nutrition and you learn about it a little bit, right?
That's pretty cool.
It can be anything
So cool.
about how do you read nutrition labels or unsaturated versus saturated fats, stuff like that. And so you can participate in this 6-week program.
And you've taught these before,
yes,
right?
So this is what I'm also facilitating this year as well. And so we talk about, like I said, it depends, people like to talk more or less, but usually around 20, 30 minutes, a week. And then they can take $15, usually in the form of farmers market tokens. And you can spend that at the farmers market.
You can also double up food bucks.
Yes, so that's another thing. So anyways, a lot of
just giving food and money so that, I don't know, to round out the society. And I just love this because this is exactly what community is, right?
Yeah.
It's not trying to lure somebody into your market because you have things, although it's important that they see that there are people there who are going to be like selling goods outside of just food, right? Because we all have that. Like, that's also very human to have, wearing rings and wearing what you want and collecting items for your home. Like, that is a super human experience. But like, the food part, we shouldn't be nickeling and diming people. And I just love this because it's like, just show up and you can feed yourself, you can feed your family, you can learn about your health, you can double up the capabilities that you had with that $15. It's just like, that to me is so inviting. That to me is how you like regenerate a space where you might have people who are considered to be under the poverty line or what we would consider to be
it's like
poor.
truly enriching.
Yeah, it is. And it just, I don't know. That's something that you don't see often. And unfortunately not in Grand Rapids because we are such a like profit-based city, it seems. So it's such a cool thing.
We're business friendly.
We're incredibly business friendly.
It was something that was a little, striking to me to find out that, folks much older than myself, really don't have much of an understanding of nutrition, right? And one thing that I would try to tell folks is that your body requires things, right? Your body needs vitamins, it needs minerals, it obviously needs water. If you're not giving your body those things, then it's hard for you to be your best self in a variety of ways, whether that's physically or mentally, like your body needs those things. And so, it was very like, wow, this individual is 55 years old or so, and, they have diabetes, and no one has ever really talked to them about what it means to eat healthy or why that's something that's important. you know, or how many people or systems failed these individuals.
Yeah.
All, you know, by the time they're this age and they don't really know much about where to get fresh produce, or their neighborhood, they have to go with farther than a mile to get access to that produce. You know, it's like, wow. So, you know, they develop taste for salty and sweet foods, and, you know, there's probably a liquor store on the corner and that carries those things and probably no fresh produce. And that's the reality for many neighborhoods in Detroit. So, it's a great opportunity. So, you know, you do that fresh prescription, or sometimes called fresh RX. You know, you can get $15 a week to spend at the farmer's market, and then you can get a $25 gift card at the end if you've, you know, finished the program.
Yay.
So it's just a cool incentive to obviously access the market and get some free stuff. And yeah, it's a great thing.
We love it.
I love that. So I guess it was something I still want to kind of talk about too, is the intersections between what you see in cities and in rural communities, right? Because we talked about like just the human basic needs that we have, and how if you are, I'll keep using this term, if you're a poor American, you're likely going to be facing the same exact thing no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And I just feel like something that can unite us all is understanding those basic needs and having them met, so that we can like move on to bigger things, right?
Or even just like community resilience, right? Like if people were receiving like the right amount of nutrition and we're putting the right ingredients into their bodies, then they would be more like immune to when things like COVID-19 happens, right? Versus somebody who's probably just eating like the bare minimum to like survive and being like undernourished and
COVID hit people hardest in rural communities and in poorer areas in urban.
You can say those are areas that probably have like lower nutritional like IQ, for lack of a better word.
Totally. And that's something you know exactly about, right? A lower nutritional IQ and how that can impact somebody from the start of their birth all the way through the end of their ultimately shorter than expected life.
Yeah, no, it's true. And so I do think it's really interesting because oftentimes they're like pinned up against each other. Like there's some like strong opposition to people that live in rural and urban areas, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case.
Country mouse and city mouse. They made a whole story about it.
Tell me, I don't know the story.
Yeah.
No? Okay. Dang. Okay, well, it's very dim in my head, but I know that I actually love to tell a story, but I was like, I don't know. I haven't read this since I was like in 3rd grade.
I did just like a snap.
Yeah, well, there's just like this little story about like a city mouse who, you know, like your typical city life. Like it's very fast paced. He's always doing like really risky things to like get food and like narrowly avoiding traps and foot traffic and all these things. And then he meets a country mouse who lives like the opposite, right? Like, it's like a life of like, you know, more slow pace. Like everything he gets is like foraged from nature. And then country mouse went to try and like live with city mouse, but he could not handle it. And he was like, "F this! I'm going back to the city." But then city mouse tried to go live with country mouse, and then he was like, "I'm bored here. Like I don't know what to do." So I just want to fact check myself on the town mouse and country mouse. Oh,
here's Nancy
story.
with the facts. No matter what,
Look, I don't want to speak untruth. But according to read.gov, the moral of the story, because this is like a Aesop fable, I think I said that right.
Okay.
The moral of the story is, poverty with security is better than plenty in the midst of fear and uncertainty. And I don't know about you, but that sounds like capitalist propaganda, so I just wanted to name that.
I like that. Thank you for, finding that source for us.
Yeah, of course.
That's Nancy with the sources.
It's true. I do think a lot of that kind of comes from political environments to kind of divide people up. I do think it is easier to deal with the population if you can divvy them up. And whether it's something that brings people together, like everyone wanting access to healthcare and housing and education for themselves and their children, I do think one of the important things, and we don't see as much of it anymore, but kind of a revive, you could say, is labor unions. Labor unions have historically been a way to bridge that gap in a lot of ways. Bridge that gap in, neighborhoods you live in, backgrounds you're from.
Totally.
Race, gender, all kinds of different, because, you're workers, you are in the same workplace. You have a collective.
Yeah, right. The things that you're dealing with on a day-to-day
Mm-hmm.
basis for that 8 to 10 hours, say that's what you work for.
Yes.
You're dealing with the same thing, and maybe in the conversation you might have realized we have the same religion, or we watch the same TV show, we like the same sports team, we enjoy the same type of food or something like that, right? Like you automatically find those commonalities. And again, someone could be coming in from a city and someone could be coming in from a rural area.
Exactly. So, and then sometimes, you don't even have to like that individual necessarily, but you both are active or support your union, and that brings you guys together enough, right?
Yeah, you could be literally a conservative person and a left-leaning person and still have the common understanding that I need to get paid this much, that I need to have health benefits, that I don't need to work more than 5 hours a week or whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. So, for example, a UAW member or a Teamster member, you can be in a rural part of the country, or you can live in Chicago, Detroit, a city, and that would be a common bond between union members, right? No matter where you live. So, that is a way to connect people in ways that can be difficult otherwise.
Yeah.
And I just think that's very important. Workers, make the country go, and that kind of collective energy is a pretty powerful force, and very uniting force as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And even you getting into your job in doing this for work almost feels like another uniting force.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. So it's true. We do a lot of cool stuff. I gotta say, at our job, and one thing that we are focusing on right now is we're trying to acquire a lot where we host our farmers market to beautify this space.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is a lot that we've been renting for a while, and let's be honest, surface lots in Detroit, they have been cooked by the sun in cars. They're all cracked.
Preach.
They're cracked all could be.
It's the theme, any surface lot.
Yes.
In any area.
We're looking at acquiring this lot, removing some concrete and planting some trees and some bushes, and really adding some more garden boxes and really livening up the space to be used for, all kinds of different.
That would be so beautiful.
Yeah. So that is something that.
Go ahead.
I would just go ahead. No, you say.
Well, I was gonna say
You guys have such funny conversation patterns.
No, it's just the. What do you mean by that?
It's just funny.
No, there's this parking lot. So it's a parking lot. I think it's Prince Concepts or something like that in Detroit. And you're kind of piggybacking off of this idea that somebody had, right? Where they're, instead of using every single space to park, you're putting you're putting native trees and plants in between so that you can retain the water.
Yeah,
they're not putting in concrete.
That helps to prevent flooding.
What is
especially
it?
if you have rain gardens and
yes.
stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, but nature doesn't want concrete there, and so they actually use this gravel. It's broken up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like
piece
a river.
of
It's
rock
like
or
a
something.
river stone.
Yeah,
and there's different kinds of gravel that you can use, where they basically, they'll tear out the concrete, level it out, and then put they'll plant some trees and then put some stone.
Mm-hmm. Better traction in the snow too.
It's true. It's walkable. You can park on it.
Mm-hmm.
It absorbs water, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So one addition that we also were a part of with the city of Detroit was putting in bioswales, also called rain gardens, that go around on the corner there, which are natural, rainwater filtration. It's supposed to be Michigan, plants and trees there.
Yeah, native species.
Exactly. So we have some bioswales there, which are, we're hoping to continue that beautification efforts. And also we purchased up some single-family homes and some commercial properties that have also been dilapidated, and we fixed those up as well. That's also what we're focusing on as well, because there's no shortage of that. So we purchase some homes and we try to fix them up, and we get families mortgage ready to take on these homes, and we get them in there.
True regeneration, when you think about it, or I'll even, whenever you show me just clips of some of the homes that you're going through, Nancy, it is this most just you can feel it. It's a chilling feeling to seeing a building that somebody used to live in that's just like the walls are literally like piece by piece just falling down.
Yeah, it's eerie.
Or, you know,
because you wonder how many families that building held and protected for so long, only to just be left like that.
If the walls could talk.
The walls could talk.
Well, they kind of do. You know, I mean, you can just feel that
they're
energy.
flapping in the wind now.
It's something else. You go around some of the places that we have acquired and fixed up, or just throughout Detroit. I mean, we're talking about buildings from 1926 and so on,
Wow.
right? Schools, big brick schools. They're like, you go in there, it looks kind of like almost like a horror movie or something. It looks pretty scary, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's like chilling, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but if the walls could talk, I think they would be thanking people in organizations like Joy Southfield, who are not going to let them just go down like that, right? Like, there are certain buildings that maybe just really need to go down. Like, it's not servicing anybody to have them there, but to take something that has bones and has stories and has structure and to rebuild that, I think is like just such a metaphor in itself, right? To not just allow for this to continue, but to get to the root of it as well by getting people mortgage ready and putting them in those spaces. You know, like, that is just full circle. So, and like, I know this is really hard to hear about, you know, the people who are living in some of the most stark circumstances, but there is so many people on the ground. Like, this is almost always on the ground work in individuals, nonprofits, just pouring every bit that they can into making sure that we don't continue to live in these conditions. And so it's just, I love hearing the other side of why AmeriCorps exists. You know, I love hearing what AmeriCorps does get to do because of that, and just like the type of person that can come out of seeing those types of situations.
You know, AmeriCorps, again, you know, I think a lot of people should look into it if they want to, for a variety of different reasons. You know, what inspires you to get involved with community or different nonprofits and stuff like that. You know, it has some great benefits. Or obviously, you get some different like healthcare benefits. You can get food benefits. You know, you can pause your student loans if you have student loans during your service. You can pause them so you don't have to make payments.
Oh.
I didn't know that.
And then you can get money. So I have about 11.
Everybody go sign up for AmeriCorps after listening.
Yeah. So if you have student loans, obviously, and then future. So I have money right now. I have about $11,000 I can use towards future schooling. You know, from my time with AmeriCorps. So yeah. Anyways,
you can like rack up credit.
Yeah, they only allow a certain amount. I think I'm about towards the max. Yeah. That is, but yes, you can.
But still, that's like that could be an AA degree.
Yeah, depending on where, and then you can pair that up with either some scholarships. So also, AmeriCorps has partnerships with different universities and colleges throughout the country, where they will either wipe your whole application fee. They'll double a scholarship. They'll do a whole host. So say you have $10,000 in AmeriCorps money. It's called Siegel Award. You can double that. Some colleges will double that amount.
Oh, and it's like a matching thing.
Yes, so you can look into that as well. So it has some, for me the greatest benefit was just seeing different parts of the country and meeting a lot of great people.
Of course,
some really good friends of mine still I met in Colorado and other places during my AmeriCorps service. So there's a whole host. There's even Climate Corps. I think they're trying to really revive that. That's a whole.
Climate is like really cool.
Yeah. So climate is very cool, and it's very important. It's tied into much of the stuff that I'm involved in as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even just thinking it would be a really great way to get involved, because you'll have like a lot of people that are like, oh, like I really would love to get involved with climate, but I don't really know where to start. I feel like Climate Corps, like especially because it does have with perks, so for folks that maybe are a little bit like limited in their resources, like many of us are, that's a good way to get started and also kind of get a little something in return.
Yeah, what is the process like? Like, how do you get involved with something like AmeriCorps? Do you literally just go on the website and like apply?
Yeah, you really can just go on the website and apply. However, you can also apply sometimes through the organization website. So basically, if you're a nonprofit, you can apply for AmeriCorps status. So even UCC or some, for example, could apply for AmeriCorps status. And they will get grants and volunteers, and they have to pay. You have to pay a little bit of the, the money to the volunteer and stuff like. You have to pay for it a little bit. However, much of it is paid for through AmeriCorps.
I think WEMIAC might do something like that, but I know they just hired somebody on, or maybe an intern. I'm not sure the status of like what they do with WEMIAC, but they're with AmeriCorps. They do work with AmeriCorps, so maybe it's something like that. Maybe they're through Climate Corps.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I would definitely recommend people to check it out if if that's something that sounds interesting to you. You want to give back. You want to be a part of something larger than yourself, perhaps. Right? Yeah. AmeriCorps, usually at least once a year they'll bring you somewhere in the country, right? Or you'll do some event, or you'll do something kind of cool. You'll meet with other members throughout the country, right? So
that's pretty dope. I love it.
Just another revenue to getting to this place. The three of us do some form of work that impacts the environment that we live in, regardless of which lens you went to school and it was for art, and you went to school and it was for business and hospitality, and I'm really stupid and I couldn't go to school. But either way, like, we're all sitting in this room and we're all talking about very similar topics, and we're all doing things that do have an impact. So I love it. I love that no matter what.
A little bit of inspiration for y'all's journey.
Inspiration. So we always do a call to action. So
I bet Marco has one.
I'm feeling like Marco might have a call to action.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure I have more than one, or I have a few, maybe. You can pick one.
Well, you've heard our podcast before, so you know how this is.
Do it in like a multiple choice format.
Well,
good idea.
You can just pick what makes the most sense for you.
Okay.
I would say find a community organization that does good work in your area that you admire or you respect. That could be a variety of things. That could be the public library, right? That could be go get your library card.
We love library.
That's where we're at right now.
So yeah, you could be something like that. It could be an organization like UCC. Go to their events. It could be an organization like MyCan. It could be an organization like Joy Southfield. Look at some community orgs in your area and see ones that you would want to support. It could be
local DSA.
It could be nationwide orgs, right? It could be Democracy Now. It could be The Nation magazine. In These Times, those are important outlets that do great work that need support, right? And that can be $5-10 a month, right? Yeah. So I have a whole a handful or so of orgs that I support like that, and another call of action I would say is maybe commit maybe once a week, once a month, twice a month to either cycling or taking the bus to an errand or to work or something like that. Even if your city has, shitty bus service, or, not a lot of bike lanes or unprotected lanes, try to commit to once a month or a couple times a month, whatever it seems viable for you, right? And show that, people want to take a bus, people want to ride a bike, right? I do think great cities throughout the world, prioritize other ways of getting around besides a car. And I think that if you show that there's other ways to get around, maybe some people will notice. So that's all.
Yay. Some of my favorite cities that I visited, remember New Orleans? They had the coolest trolley running through the middle of the city. New Orleans and trolley. That's who I went with. No, it's okay. I love it, Nancy. I just don't even say anything anymore. It's my favorite. But no, every city, like larger city, every cool city I've been to, Miami has really great transit. I mean, they could probably use more, but they have like a cool trolley system. Chicago does. LA, I know, is like ramping up their stuff.
Well, I think I've even told you that the reason why I never even missed having a car in Los Angeles is because it's like the train took me to the farther places, the buses took me to all the nearby places, and then the city is so walkable that if I was going downtown, I would just walk downtown.
Yeah. And seeing people do it, seeing people use it, it makes you kind of like feel more okay doing it. I mean, like when you're the only person walking in a place or the only person standing at a bus stop, you kind of feel weird about it, but like that doesn't, shouldn't change the fact that we need those things and they're part of infrastructure. And if we don't use it, we will lose it. I promise you, if we do not get people on a bus, they will give us a reason and be like, nobody rides it. We're getting rid of this. Yeah. And then how do we get around, you know?
Yeah, it's true. I think they're, get people out of their cars, get them talking to each other a little bit. I do think there's a whole side of transit that brings people together. And then to your point,
I've made friends on the bus.
Exactly.
I've never made a friend driving.
Really driving.
We make the opposite of friends driving.
We make enemies driving.
Driving creates a lot of animosity, traffic, road rage, and look, cars take up a lot of space and they're polluting and stuff like that. I just think there's a whole host of reasons why it could, it's good to get out of your car sometimes and, maybe take that public transit, ride the bike, say hello to someone on your way.
Yeah. I'm always that nerd who's like big waving, like smiling at everybody, like hi. It's just nice.
What? Growing up in the hood, I just did like the chin up, like what up?
No, it depends, right? If I'm riding by someone who looks cool, that's what I'm gonna do. But the other day we were riding, and every person I went by, I did, and no matter who they were, they did the same thing back. Like I think people want that interaction. Yeah. I'm convinced by it, so I'm gonna keep doing it.
It's true.
Also, World Bicycle Day is on June 3rd. Not sure when this is going to drop.
For that?
We should be. Everybody should be. World Bicycle Day. Throw your car away and go ride and go buy a bike. That's what you're supposed to do. On
don't throw it away. Recycle it.
Yeah, right. Don't throw it away. Please don't throw it away. Properly dispose of.
Donate it to Sierra Club or something.
Donate it to Sierra Club. So yeah, thank you so much for walking us through that, biking us through that. We took a couple stops on the Marco Express.
Oh Lord.
But I know that's so right. It was super cringe. No, but thank you so much. I think it's super interesting just to hear your story. I think a lot of people will resonate with being at different points in their journey, and yeah, that's dope.
That's all I got.
That's all we have.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marco.
Thank you for listening to the Green Rapids podcast.
He's so formal.
So formal.
But it's okay.
All right.
All right, bye.
Peace.